Right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, Warren's Team Talk. And I'm delighted to say that I've got the one and the only Jezs here, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by him today. And we're going to be talking about his life as a football fan, and obviously Jezs is a massive Arsenal fan, so probably that will be what we'll be talking about. But yeah, so thanks ever so much to you, Jezs, for agreeing to come on. I'm so grateful for this, and I'm really looking forward to it, mate. So,
thanks, mate. Thanks for inviting me on. You know, it's I've been looking forward to this since we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jezs, do you want to just tell people about your channel and all that sort of stuff before we get into the questions and whatnot?
Yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, it's basically I set it up after getting pressurised by people to do it. I was getting a lot of people say, "Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it." You know, mainly from Lee's channel, to be fair. So I thought one day, I'm just going to do it. So I sat here one evening, and I just came up with that title, Arsenal: The History and More. And I'll be doing a couple of more history ones next week. Which will be where Arsenal now got into the 20th century and move forward from there. Yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. It was good the other night. I had Kenny Ken and Gracie May on, and that was a really enjoyable show to do. So, yeah, that's what it's all about, really.
It's a great channel, people. So if there's any of you out there who haven't subscribed to Jez's channel, please go and do it. In the comments, I did put a link in earlier for you to click on if you want to do that, or it's also in the description of the video as well. So all you need to do is just click on the links and it will take you there, and you can go and subscribe to him and go and watch his videos. I mean, I reckon even if you're not an Arsenal fan, right, you'd enjoy it because it's so interesting. Like, well, personally, I like finding out about the history of all sorts of different football clubs, right? And if you're like me, then you're going to find it interesting, 100%. But because I'm an Arsenal fan, and that's where my passion is, it's even more interesting for me. But I reckon any football fan would enjoy it. So please go and check it out because it is fantastic. And the way he does it, it's superb. I just really like it, and I think you've done a great job, Jezs.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, I mean, I actually have got people come in there. There's a few in Liverpool. There's a couple of Tottenham fans as well, actually. There's some Chelsea, Man United, Brentford, obviously. So obviously, you know, people like talking about the history of, like yourself, football clubs. So. That's quite good because you get a different aspect and opinion of people from people when they're from a different club.
Exactly, mate. I think it's great. So, and I don't understand why, but I don't think Arsenal Football Club on their website have got anything about the history of the club.
Never seen anything.
Because other clubs websites I've looked at in the past, they've got a dedicated part of their website which is about the history of the club.
I think Arsenal rely purely on the museum at the Emirates that you can visit. So I think it's a fact with Arsenal. If you want to know about the history, go and find it yourself. So
exactly. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to find out a little bit, hopefully, about your history with Arsenal, Jezs, if that's all right.
Yeah. Carry on.
Okay, mate. So first question I want to ask is, how did your interest in football start, Jezs?
It all started through my granddad, who lived in Gillespie Road, right opposite the North Bank. And I was actually born in that house. And a few years later, my parents rented a house in Avenel Road, right opposite the East Stand. But I started getting interested in football when I was about 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And my granddad used to always tell me about all the stories of Arsenal from when he first started supporting them in 1924, about the games he went to, the first ever FA Cup Arsenal got into, which they sadly lost to Cardiff City, and of course the great 30s teams of that Herbert Chapman started, and all the amazing games that he went to in that time. And then obviously after the war, when football was fully resumed, he told me, 40s over the years, he was a fountain of knowledge about Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And he took me to my first Arsenal home game in August '68, which was home to Leicester, and Arsenal won 3-0. And I can even remember the scorers. It was a guy called Court and Gould. Gould scored 2, and that was how my love with Arsenal started. Really, there was never an option to support another team, not where I lived. And back in those days, Warren, it was very much a community thing. Mm. If you lived near a football ground or in an area of a football ground, you didn't go and support. There's no way where I was going to support Chelsea or Leeds United, and that's how it was in the day. If you lived in that town or city, then that's the team you supported. Nowadays, it's a much more spread thing. I know people I chat to who live in Sunderland and support Arsenal. So, and a mate of mine, very good mate of mine I've known for years, he supports Sunderland and lives down here in the south. So, it's a different thing nowadays. But that's how I got involved with it, mate.
Wow, it sounds interesting, especially the fact that you had your granddad who was an Arsenal fan as well. And, he was going back to games in the 30s and, the first ever cup final and stuff like that. That sounds amazing. He must have been able to tell you some amazing stories.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every time we went up there, because I remember for years and years and years, it was on a match day. Obviously, my first early days, I wasn't allowed to go to away games. It was only home games. And he always said that back then he used to go in the North Bank, but when I used to go with him, we'd go up to the Upper West tier, because basically he didn't want me in the North Bank because it was us. He was worried I'd get injured or whatever or fall over. So we'd always go in the Upper West, mainly because, as he said, you won't be able to see anything if you're in the North Bank because you've got all these 6-foot blokes in front of you, and I'm a little down here. But back in those days, what they used to do, they used to put all the kids down the front in the North Bank. And you wouldn't see it now, but you used to get kids coming in with the old beer bottle boxes.
All right.
Else they could stand on to look over the wall. I mean, that wouldn't be allowed now. But yeah, I mean, it was on a match day. It was always the same thing. I'd go up there to his house and we'd have pie and chips every time. It was pie and chips, and then he'd sit there smoking his old rolly up cigarettes, and he'd tell me stories. And there's quite often a friend of mine who lived 4 doors up from me, Paul. He used to come with us as well. Very occasionally, his dad would come, but his dad wasn't really into football. A bit like mine, but my dad hated football. Actually hated it. So that was it, really. That's how it all went about.
Wow. Because, I mean, I've heard people talking about the community aspect of it before. And I know, like, from chatting to my dad as well, he was like that. Like, when he lived in Scotland, he lived in Dunfermline. and it was only ever going to be Dunfermline. He had a affiliation with Celtic as well because of Jock Stein, but the local team was Dunfermline, and everyone supported Dunfermline and Celtic or Rangers. Do you know what I mean? But they would always, he'd always be on about Dunfermline, and that was the number one. But that was where his community was. And then when he came down here, he attached himself to Arsenal. You know, so yeah, I've heard about all the community aspect of it. And I remember listening to a guy called John Lydon, who's the singer in the Sex Pistols, and he was born and brought up really close to Arsenal, big Arsenal fan. And he said when he used to go in the North Bank, he said it was all like community and neighbours. He'd see neighbours, uncles, and whatnot all over the North Bank. So yeah. It's very interesting for me. Do you know what I mean? Seeing how it's developed over the years, because like you say, now we've got supporters from all over the world. And I remember years ago standing in the North Bank, and this fella rocked up when we were standing there. And at first I was a bit wary of him because he was going, "Yeah, I'm from Nottingham. I'm a massive Arsenal fan." And I'm thinking, really? I was thinking, are you sure? And I was thinking he was sussing us out because I thought Forest were going to come and try and attack the North Bank at some point or something. Do you know what I mean? Because I was really like surprised because I'd never seen it before. Like there were people from up north like wanting to support Arsenal. Do you know what I mean?
Especially a team like Forest. Especially a team like back in the Forest in the 70s. They were a big team, you know.
Yeah.
But you are right. I mean, obviously nowadays with the internet and etc., it's available to a far bigger global fan base. And at times, I don't think that's always such a good idea. But it is the way of the world, and we got to accept it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you obviously grew up really close to the ground then, Jezz?
Probably 30 yards.
So when you went to school and whatnot, was it all Arsenal in the school, or did you have...
There was, I'd say 90%, probably 95%. I do remember this one lad coming to school, and he was a Chelsea fan, but that's because his parents had moved from southwest London up to Islington, so he didn't. That wasn't his fault, but he used to get ribbed pretty badly, I can tell you.
I can imagine, blimey, because especially back in the day, because they weren't great, were they? Let's be fair.
Not then.
No. Exactly.
Well, I mean, early 70s, they had a decent team, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they weren't really anything like they are now.
No.
Pretty relentless now.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned earlier about your first game was Leicester at home, and I just wanted to ask you about that. How did you feel when you first went into this ground? Can you remember much about it? And
yeah, it's. I remember we were out in the concourse outside by the North Bank, and I remember standing. It seemed like hours. Because my granddad was chatting to all these blokes he knew, and I was getting really fed up. I was eager, first football game. What are you doing there? And I remember when we actually got there into the Upper West, and I remember looking down at Highbury. As a little kid, I was 8. And I was like, wow, this is incredible, and all the people and all the noise and all that. And I remember we went, sat down, we had second row seats from the front and just back from the halfway line, so you could see the dugouts and the tunnel and all that. And it was like an unbelievable feeling. And I remember being quite nervous, because obviously I'd seen all the crowds and stuff from at home and at my granddad's place on a match day. And it seemed to me like there was hundreds of thousands of fans, which of course there wasn't. But getting inside and you hear the noise, because even though you could hear it outside the ground on a match day, when you're actually in there, it's ringing around the ground, So it's a completely different experience for me. And I just loved it. I just loved it. It was, and that was it. I was bitten, and it was never going to change. That was the way it was.
No, exactly. And I can relate to that because I remember, when I first started going, there was the police band that used to march up and down the pitch and all that. And the guy at the front who was like doing that, I don't even know what the thing's called, but he used to have this big stick.
Yeah.
And he used to throw it up in the air, and like the North Bank used to love it. And I'm not sure, but I remember one day, I think he might have dropped it.
All right.
And there was a massive cheer went up when he dropped it. But yeah, I used to love all that. Do you know what I mean? And I have to say, Jezz, I miss it, to be honest.
I think a few games I've been to this season, unfortunately, I don't like the Emirates. I don't like that stadium at all. I think it's soulless. It's just, when you've been to, the amount of games that I went to at Highbury over the years, to suddenly up sticks and move there, it's quite a difficult thing. And there's a lot of people that I know from years and years back that I used to go to games with that don't like it and don't really go now, and they still live there. They still live in the streets around Highbury, but they just don't like the Emirates experience. And these guys have been going as long as I have been going, or being a fan of Arsenal. And unfortunately now, because I don't live I live nearly 60 miles away from the Emirates. Getting up there is a mission. It's expensive. With match day ticket, having something to eat, having something to drink, train, and all that. It's a lot of money, and I actually, to be honest with you, prefer going nowadays. I prefer going to away games. They're always a good experience. It's always a good day out. So I've been to more away games this season than I've been to home games, to be fair. So. I think the actual experience of seeing a live football game, you can't beat it. Once you've seen it once, it bites you, and it's like a drug. You can't get enough of it. But if I lived nearer, I would probably go more. That's for sure. But I nowadays don't like this fractured fan base, which it's people, because they think their opinion's correct, you're not allowed to have one. And you see it in people's chat, on Jezs Channel or wherever. When he was doing his show this morning, there's people there who've probably never ever been to a game in their lives, telling Lee's a fake fan and this, that, and the other. He's in the mud and all this absolute rubbish. And well, if you want Arteta in, that's fine. That's your opinion. But there's also an equal number of people that don't want him, and I'm one of them. So, I've had it. People in Jezs Channel giving me hate. I don't care. I'm going to be 61 soon. I've had worse, I can assure you. But just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean you are right.
Yeah, that's right. You're right, mate. And I don't know where all this started. I'm looking back at it now, and I think it started with Arsene Wenger.
Absolutely, totally right. Yeah, you are totally right. The last 10 years is where it all started, because he should have gone then. And basically Arsene Wenger thought he owned Arsenal. And he was hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. And you could get the feeling of, well, that games you'd get people booing him and booing the team if they didn't play right. I mean, but this guy Arteta, he's got some sort of magical hold over some of the fan base, and I just don't understand it. And it's unfortunate there's some channels out there which I think are total fakers that actually promote it.
I mean, I just find it, it baffles me, because I remember back in the day, and I'm sure you remember, Jez, he never used to have any of this.
No,
it wasn't like that when Terry Neal was there. It wasn't like that when George Graham was there or Bruce Rioch. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. I just don't remember it being like that. I mean, there were discussions that were had, but it wasn't like nowhere near like it is now. Maybe it was because there wasn't social media then.
I think a lot of it is warrant social media. You get a lot of people, and it's not their fault. They can't get to games. They live abroad, but they think their world knowledge of Arsenal Football Club is better than anybody else's. Well, sorry, it ain't. And you get these people, which makes me laugh, calling themselves top gooners. Well, if you actually knew what a gooner was, you wouldn't call yourself a top gooner. That is for sure. Now, that is the fact, because these people don't know what who the gooners were or what a gooner was. There's not many of them around nowadays, but it's stupid things like that that really, really bug me, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially as well when it brought it back to me, like when you and Kenny were talking about the poor lad that got murdered. Back in the day when Arsenal played West Ham.
Yeah.
Because I remember it happening. I remember hearing about a guy that got stabbed and reading it in the paper. But it was so long ago that not that I'd forgotten it, but it had just sort of gone out of my mind.
Yeah.
And then when you two started talking about it, it sort of refreshed it in my memory, and it brought back all the memories and how disturbing it was. And then I looked it up on the internet, and those images I saw on the internet of all this smoke billowing across the North Bank and people out on the pitch, and I was just thinking, geez, I really hope we don't have to go back to all those sorts of carry on.
I don't think it would be as bad. I mean, let's be honest. There's always been football trouble, but there were certain points in the 70s, into the 80s, that it got particularly bad. And I've seen it unintentionally be involved with it, but I suppose you could say it was partly I'm to blame, because I used to go to games with people who were part of the Gooners and all that, So if you stood too close to them, you likely get involved. So I tried not to, be honest.
Yeah.
But it was sad times, and that particular day was a horrendous day. They got in, the West Ham lot got into the North Bank looking for, and it all just kicked off. It was unbelievable. We had the police in there, and I remember a couple of the stewards getting knocked out. And it was just a bad day, to be honest.
No, it's sad, because I remember, like I said, reading about it, and I remember just before the 1980 Cup final, some of them got in the North Bank. I think the game before.
Yeah.
And I remember we was right down the front, and all of a sudden you heard them singing "We're Forever Blowing Bubbles," and I was thinking, oh God, here we go. Do you know what I mean? Because I was about 12 or 13 at the time, I guess. Do you know what I mean? And it's when you're 12, 13, you don't really understand what it is all about like that on that level. And it is quite scary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I you know, how I don't understand. I mean, you know, I can remember my granddad was telling me stories about even the 50s and 60s. There was sometimes trouble at games, especially Arsenal, Tottenham, and Chelsea, Fulham, games like that. You know, local rivalry. But in that time, it was bloody horrendous. You know, it was quite scary. You know, I remember going up to it's either an FA Cup or a Football League away game at Hull City, and that was unbelievable. On every street corner, there was all these Hull fans, and it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And I was just glad to get out of there, to be honest.
I bet. That's a nightmare. Yeah, it sounds like my experience of going to Middlesbrough, to be honest with you. Not something I'd want to repeat again in a hurry, to be honest. But yeah, so Jezz, when you were you mentioned earlier about going to away games and how you probably enjoy it more now than being going to games at the Emirates. Why do you think that is? Why do you enjoy going to the away games more, do you reckon?
Well, I like it because it's a different experience. And the away fans are second to none. They're always supportive. I haven't been to any away games where they sing this stupid song about Mikel Arteta. I haven't heard that yet. And I just find the Emirates, I just don't like the atmosphere there. But as I said before, I think that's because of the thousands of games that I went to at Highbury. Well, probably not that way. I've been to 2,583 games in total.
That's unbelievable. I find it amazing that you even know the exact amount that you've been to. I find that brilliant.
I just kept counting from over the years. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of programs. I don't buy programs now because I just don't see the point. But the fact of having been to so many games at Highbury, moving to the Emirates, it doesn't do it for me. Don't like, you know, it's a great stadium. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic. I just don't get the atmosphere. I don't get the same vibe.
I personally, I don't think there is. I think, I don't get the feeling when I've been there. It's not like it was like you'd be able to walk into the North Bank and see people you knew, and I don't know. I think it's missing something. I don't know whether it's because back in the day when I was going nearly every game at home, I'd walk into the North Bank, you'd see the same faces every week and you'd chat to people and stuff. I don't know, but I just find with the Emirates, when I've been there, because I haven't been many times, because like you, I don't really like it. I just don't think the people that are going there are particularly interested in getting behind the team that much, or if they do, it's it's not the same way that I remember it from Highbury, Jezz.
No, you're totally right. A lot of people I see now, they'll go there, they'll have a photograph taken of themselves with Thierry Henry's statue, Dennis Bergkamp. I've never ever seen anyone stand by Herbert Chapman's and take a selfie, you know. And you see these people there, and all right, it's maybe their first ever occasion to go to an Arsenal football match at home, and they seem more interested in taking pictures of the ground than actually watching the bloody team. You know, And I just think that's very sad. And to me, because Highbury was a very tight-knit football ground, it's quite a small. I mean, you could practically touch the players on the bloody touchline, really. But the atmosphere was just so different. Whereas now, the Emirates, it's a big bowl of a stadium. And I don't know. It's probably just me. I just don't get.
No, I don't think it is, Jez, and I think it started at Highbury, because I remember going to a cup match at Highbury against Gillingham at home when we won 5-2, right? And it was a bit dead, like in the North Bank. I was over on as you look at the North Bank, I was over on the left-hand side in that corner area, and it was all seated then.
Yeah.
Right, and I remember I was sitting there, and it was a bit dead, so I thought, right, it was 2-2, and I was thinking, we need to get some singing going to get behind the team, right? So I just started trying to get some singing going. Some fella tapped me on the shoulder, Jez, and said, listen, mate, you need to calm down. And I thought, I need to calm down. This is a bloody football match. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Huh?
That is the thing. I mean, I've had it a couple of seasons ago, probably 3 seasons ago. I was at a game, and there was about a group of 4 or 5 of us, and we stood up to try and see something, and we stood there like looking down on the pitch like that could be something was going on, and this bloke behind us said, "Here, mate, sit down." And my mate turned around and said, "What?" He said, "Sit down, can't see." And I thought, hang about, this is a bloody football match.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
It's pathetic. And the thing is, everything there nowadays, to me, seems to be so corporate. That's the thing. I mean, all right, I know you did have boxes at Highbury, but it's nothing like the Emirates. And that is the way football's gone. Such big money involved in football nowadays. And I just, I mean, it's silly little things. I mean, I know this is a stupid thing to say, but the entrance to the East Stand back in the day used to have the old concierge bloke standing there.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Hat and everything. And I used to, walk past there every day, and he'd say, "All right," and his name was George. And I was going to say, "All right, Mr. George," and he'd go, "All right, how you doing?" Walk on, and you don't get that nowadays. I mean, I know you don't get that because of things have started to change. At times have changed, but it's little things like that. And I just find Highbury. I mean, it's so expensive. It's a bloody rip-off in there. Burger and chips, 15 bloody quid. And, pint of beer, 7 odd quid. It's all about money. And it just gets my bloody nerves, to be honest.
Yeah, because I find that really disturbing, that they're charging that amount of money for food and drink, and the fact that it's crap as well is the other thing, and then you have the current owner turning round when he first bought the club saying, "Oh yeah, I didn't buy the club to win trophies." And I'm thinking, well, why did you buy the bloody club then? What was your motivation? What did you think you were buying into? I just find it staggering, mate. I really do. But Jez, talking about away trips, what was your favourite away ground to visit, would you say?
Favourite away ground? I've got 2, actually. St James's Park, Newcastle. Unbelievable place to go. The crowd there is just amazing. The people, lovely people in Newcastle. It's a lovely city. At the end of. I mean, I just love it. It's great up there. And Goodison Park. I love Goodison Park. Goodison Park, great ground. All right, it's old, needs updating, but they're building a new one, aren't they? So, but out of the 2, for me, without a doubt, would be St James's Park.
Mm. It's a great ground, isn't it? And like you, I like the supporters. I like their supporters because I think they're relentless. The way they get behind the team and whatnot, I just think it's superb. And
They're
the
not,
noise.
no, they're not. I mean, they're nice. Actually, I've been to St James's Park in an Arsenal shirt, clearly on display. Never ever had any trouble. Yeah, you get abuse and everything, but it's all good banter. But never any trouble. But there's other grounds I've been to where you'd never wear a shirt because you know you're going to get trouble. So that aspect, in the fact, most times I went up there in the latter years was we'd stay overnight. It's a hell of a journey. And you could be out, I don't know, you could be out having a pizza or a curry or something. And of course, you'd have Newcastle fans out doing the same in their shirts and everything. And you'd have a good old laugh. And there's no threaten this or anything, none of that. It was just a bloody good time,
Exactly.
I think maybe that's because as you've evolved, you got older, you tend to associate with older fans. And they're not like acting like teenagers who just want to have a punch up when they've had a few beers. So I think it's a whole different aspect, to be fair.
Exactly. I agree with that. So what was your favourite moment watching Arsenal play away, Jez?
Away?
Yeah.
Oh, no question, mate. 89 at Anfield.
Yeah. That must have been amazing. I didn't go to Anfield that night, but I remember watching it on TV at home, and it looked absolutely incredible.
The atmosphere is unbelievable. The noise in there that night. I've been to Anfield many occasions. I've never known an atmosphere like that night because they thought they had it sewn up. They had all the big flags out and all this, and it was just an amazing night. I mean, I talked about it on one of my shows about what was occurring towards the time was running out because Kevin Richardson had got an injury and the clock was running down. At the time added on, and then Kevin Richardson nicked the ball off. I've got his name now. Oh God, doesn't matter. And rolled over to Lukic, who made that pass. And we know the rest is history of what happened. So, I mean, when that second goal went in, you would not believe. I remember there being there. I ended up going down 5 terraces and ended up with these 3 girls. Like everybody's hugging each other and jumping up and down. And it's just absolutely unbelievable. Leaving the ground was incredible because even the Liverpool fans were like applauding, saying, well done, this, that, and the other. Of course, there was a lot that weren't. They were totally the opposite, of course. But getting back to North London that night, I knew it'd be people out and about, but you thought that there was going to be an open top bus parade that night with the amount of people that were on the streets, drinking. It just saying it's like a riot is the wrong way, but it was just an unbelievable experience, incredible.
Sounds like a street carnival, Jez.
Oh, it was. It's rammed. All around Highbury, it rammed. You'd think that it was a match day almost, and that you're expecting the bus to come down with, Jules Graham and the team holding the league trophy and all that. But yeah, that's without a doubt. I mean, I've had some great experiences winning away at Spurs. One wasn't so great when we won 5-0 the day before Christmas Eve, but that was a day, that one, I'll tell you.
Was that the game when Chippy curled it in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stapleton got a hat-trick.
Yeah.
So I think Sunderland scored the other one. Yeah, that was there's flares going off and bloody all kinds of stuff. Red and white flares which was a bit stupid, but yeah, that was. But going home after that game, mate, I tell you, oh, dearie me, that was bad. That was bad.
Was there a lot of fighting? Was there?
Oh, Christ, that's why I got brick in the face there.
Jesus.
There, down there. Luckily, it was half a brick, to tell the truth. But luckily for me, the bloke in front, we were walking down the road, and the brick, they were throwing bottles and fucking all kinds of stuff. And the big brick come over, hit this bloke on the left shoulder, bounced off and hit me. So I didn't really get the full impact. But you imagine Christmas Day when you're trying to eat your Christmas dinner with 6 stitches there, 2 teeth missing, and a split gum. It wasn't very pleasant, I can tell you. You froze, haven't you, Warren? Do. Well, we'll carry on then. On my own. I think Warren's frozen there for a minute. So I'm just reading your comment there, Static. Warren, Jezs, exactly. When I used to go to, especially Emirates, I'd see so many people taking photos or people sitting down, playing on their phones. Yeah, true. Not watching the game. 10 years later, nothing's changed. No, exactly, mate. You get so much of that now. It's almost like you think, well, why are you bothering to be here? To be fair, and it's a shame. So I chat to Static there on your comments.
All right, okay. Yeah, sorry about that, mate. My internet went down, I think. So
Happens.
Yeah. So you're going on about coming out of White Hart Lane the day of the 5-0 hammering that we gave them, and it got a bit fruity.
Cool, did it? It was unbelievable. That's one of the worst I've seen at Tottenham. It was a pretty naughty day, to be honest. But got out there and we move on.
Yeah, because Tottenham away is quite special. I remember the night that we beat them in the League Cup when George was there as manager, and I was at the replay and we beat them 2-1.
Yeah.
And I remember afterwards we were walking down the road and singing our heads off, and nothing. There were they might have been around giving us abuse, but I don't remember it. I just remember walking down the road and singing. And then we got in the tube station, and as we went to walk in, these couple of fellas said, "Oh, what's the matter? Can't you handle us?" So I just laughed and carried on walking. Do you know what I mean? I think we're probably lucky, to be honest, more than anything.
I don't think. I mean, I haven't been to the new Tottenham ground yet. I've got a ticket for next week, but when I've been to a few in the recent years, it's nothing. You don't see it so much now. It's not like it was in the 70s and the 80s. I think it has died out. I know there have been reports at certain grounds that violence is coming back into it. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, me too.
It's all nonsense, really. I mean, it's a game of football. That's it, you know.
Mm.
With the amount of crap that's going on over in Ukraine, you don't need it. So, yeah, I hope it doesn't. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. I really hope so too. So let me see what I've got on here next. So going back to when you first started going to football again, Jez.
Yeah.
What's your favourite memory of watching football from those early days, would you say?
Going to my first FA Cup final, 70-71. And obviously we won the double that year. That was an unbelievable experience to actually go to Wembley. I've never been to Wembley. Oh no, I'm lying. I went to the disastrous 69, 68, 69 when we lost to Swindon Town in extra time.
Yeah.
That was a shame. I was really upset that day because going to Wembley and seeing Arsenal. Nobody expected Arsenal to lose. Absolutely no chance. It just wasn't going to happen. But he did, and that was a really bad day. But yeah, definitely the double, 70-71. Going to Cardiff, the Millennium Stadium, FA Cup final there. Down there, that was amazing. That's a fantastic stadium, by the way. Millennium Stadium. It's called something else now, the Principality or something.
I've got no idea, mate. I refer to it as Millennium Stadium.
Yeah, I think it's called the Principality now.
Right. Okay.
But that's a great stadium to go to. But that's a strange one because we were down there and we went into this pub and it's full of Cardiff City fans.
Oh, God.
We didn't stay long in there, I can tell you.
No, I bet you didn't.
So, but apart from that, yeah, I mean, going to different grounds is it's all part of your education in football. You know, I know devout Arsenal fans. I mean, been supporting Arsenal as long as I have. They've never beaten an away game. Not even been to Tottenham, Chelsea. You know, I think, well, why don't you want to do that? But it's their choice, I suppose.
Yeah.
But when you were younger, you know, we used to go to games and we had this rickety. How it ever got through an MOT, I don't know. It was a beaten up old transit minibus. And I think I've told this one before. We always used to stop at the Blue Ball services on the M1. And that was the place that used to get a lot of trouble because you had fans going different directions. I sat on the passenger seat and we stopped to have something to eat and drink and everything. And I opened the door and it fell off. Literally fell off. And we had to cobble up. We were in the services there and we were trying to get ropes and all kinds of bungee straps to hold the bloody door back on. And how the hell we got away with that? Being get stopped by the police. I mean, you think back now, it's a stupid thing to do because that door had fallen off on the M1. You know, that would have caused a major accident. But it was all things like that were all part of the experience, you know?
Exactly.
You know, it was all good fun. Until the final time we had it. And again, we stopped at the Blue Ball services and we got out. I think, I can't remember where we were going. We were going up. Might have been Man United. I can't remember now. But we stopped there, went into the services. 2 coaches pulled up, and it was the Valiants, the Port Vale. They completely smashed the van to pieces. That was the end of it. Destroyed it. I mean, it was falling apart anyway. Very dangerous, to be fair. But yeah, so we never got to the game.
Now, I remember you telling that story before, and bloody hell. So what did you do? Did you like, did they get you home, or how did you get back home after that?
Yeah, what we had to do was a mate of mine, one of the guys there, his father had like a bigger mini, like that 30-seater mini coach.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to come out, pick us all up, but we had to pay to have the van taken away. Basically got scrapped. You know, it wasn't worth repairing it.
Mm.
And the police did absolutely nothing. Police were there. Police were always there on the match day at Blue Ball services. They just didn't do anything. And that was it. So, but it's all things like that. You know, it's all part of the fun, really.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's all part of like what it was like going to football back in the day, Jez, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
You know,
not something I'd want to repeat, but
no, exactly. Going along the M1, worried about whether the door's going to stay on or not. Yeah. Oh dear. So during that time, who would you say your favourite players were?
What, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Liam Brady. I've never seen a player like him before. Frank Stapleton, without a doubt. Brian Talbot, brilliant player. Worked and worked and worked and worked. That guy never stopped running. Never stopped running. I remember, you know, we got him from Ipswich the following that summer when they beat us 1-0 in the FA Cup. And one player I always rated, and he was with that Arsenal Football Club for years and years and years, was Bob Wilson. Amazing goalkeeper. Really nice bloke as well. Charlie Jules, players like that. Frank McClintock. I mean, George Graham himself was a decent player. And moving on from there, in the 80s, nobody really stands out as iconic for me. And of course, then moving into the 90s, we had unbelievable players, Bergkamp coming in, Henry, all that crew. Players of that ilk I'd love to see back at Arsenal, but I have my doubts because Arsenal need to spend a big lot of money if we're going to compete next season in the league and in Europe, whether it's, you know, Europa League or the Champions League. And nowadays, you know, world-class striker nowadays, you're looking at 90 mil plus. And if this supposed budget that he's got, he's going to get 120 to 150 million, do I trust him to buy these players? No, I don't. Because Arsenal need, in my book, at least 5 players to improve this squad. I think we're going to see players go. I think, as we said before the show, I think Pepe will be out the door because I just believe Arteta doesn't like him, doesn't warrant him. And we've spoken about it, that I think Arteta is just arrogant. He's got no man management skills whatsoever. If a player's a problem, he can't sit him down and discuss it. He just outs him. Outs him. Simple as that.
100%, mate. And that's a big concern for me as well also. And I think that club needs a serious amount of investment. And I don't think 150 million or whatever it was that's been quoted is even going to touch the sides.
No, I don't. I you know, as I said, these rumours about, you know, we all know Arsenal. We're always linked to every player in Europe, and all the players we're linked to, we never buy. We get somebody else. And I don't profess to be one of these people that sits here for hours and hours and hours on end looking at all these players. I don't. So when I see a name come up, I think, well, who's he then? And then, you know, I might show an interest in finding out about him. But until that player is signed a contract, wearing an Arsenal shirt, I don't get excited. I hear it every single year. Every day we link this player, we link with that player, and then you get people coming out. Oh yeah, he's brilliant. He's that. This. I think, what do you do all day? Do you just sit there and watch every league game in Europe? Is that all you do?
Exactly.
Because I don't. I've actually got a life, you know. So, no.
I mean, the thing is, Jezz, as well, Arsenal never really been massive spenders in the transfer market, have we?
Never, ever, never.
You know, we wouldn't go out and buy the world's greatest player when they're at the peak of their powers.
No, I mean, can you imagine Arsenal back in time going and trying to buy Messi? No, they wouldn't even bother. You know, I mean, Pepe, 72 million. Oh, that's you know, our record transfer fee for a club, football club, Arsenal, supposedly the third biggest in England, which I think that will disappear soon because I think that will be Chelsea, to be fair. So we never have. Arsenal's always tried to do things on the cheap. Now, the difference is, and it is slightly similar today, Arsenal never really announce. They're not like some clubs that are. Let's say it's Liverpool. They're in for a player, and they'll publicise it. Arsenal have never really done that. It's all done behind closed doors, which I think actually is a good idea. But what I don't think is any good is I don't think that Vinay and Edu have any great ability in securing these players. I don't think they're great negotiators.
No, I don't think they are. Because I remember, you probably remember this as well. Like back in the day, that we tried to, well, we almost did sign Diego Maradona, didn't we, when he was a teenager? But it fell apart or something. I think I heard the rumor that I heard was that it was because the FA didn't want Arsenal signing a player from outside the European Union or something.
There was something. I'm sure you're right. You know, I mean, I heard stuff that it was because of the country he came from. And I mean, I don't know what I've got no inside knowledge of it, but it was a shame, that's for sure.
Because I've got a newspaper article about it, Jezz, somewhere. If I can find it, I'll send it to you so you can have a read of it. But yeah, it was. But that's the only time I can ever remember us even being in for like a player of that standing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the flops Arsenal have bought over the years. One in particular, I remember, and you probably remember his name, Peter Marinello. The guy off his second name.
Peter Marinello.
Yeah, that's it, Peter Marinello. I always felt sorry for him because the press were making him out to be the Scottish George Best. And that poor guy flopped. He absolutely flopped. I mean, when we bought Charlie Nicholas, he did well, don't get me wrong, but he was never the player he was hyped out to be. I mean, I remember, the 2 goals he scored in the League Cup against Liverpool, but he never really kicked on, to be fair, which is a shame.
Yeah, because I remember him as well. I actually got to know him, Jezz, when he was at Arsenal, and lovely fella. And one day, I'm not going to do it on the stream because I just don't want. I want to respect him and whatnot. But some of the things he did were great, like with people and whatnot. But he was seen as the new Kenny Dalglish, wasn't he? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And
that's what he was
sorry,
that's what he was reported he was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, when he played in Scotland, he was a great player, but I'm sorry, I don't think the Scottish Premier League is anywhere near the quality of Division 1 as it was then. But and it's been proven with a couple of people we've bought from the Scottish leagues without the difference in that is, of course, Tierney. I think Tierney's absolutely class. Unfortunately, he does suffer from injuries.
Yeah, he's a bit delicate, isn't he, with the old injuries, you know?
Yeah, very much. And a friend of mine who's a massive Celtic supporter lives down here, and he goes to every home game at Celtic. He flies from Gatwick up to the game and back the same day. He's an absolute bloody lunatic. But
that's some dude. That is.
He said to me when we were in for Tierney, he said, "Yeah, he's a great player. He is a great player." He said, "But he's prone to injury." And he's lived up to that, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, definitely. And I've heard stories about him where, like, when he first started, his career nearly never got off the ground because he had this really serious injury. And you wonder whether it ever got really sorted out because he keeps getting injured, doesn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it seems to be a recurring issue, doesn't it? Like Jack Wilshere, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Had great potential, but unfortunately, he was a bit of a, bit not physically strong enough to continually play, and he just kept pick up niggly injuries, didn't he?
Yeah. So, Jezz, moving on, what did you, looking at all the teams we've had down the years, what would you say is the greatest team that you've seen at Arsenal? I just want you to think about the teams that you've seen, not going back into the 30s and before that and whatnot.
No. I would say the 91 team. I mean, I know the Invincibles were an unbelievable team, but I personally would say the 91 team were better. I mean, they were so unlucky not to go unbeaten that year. But that's football, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is, and they were. And do you think they would have beaten the Invincible team?
I think they would. I do think they would. But it was a different manager, different tactics. So that's a hard one to call.
Yeah, it is a hard one to call. But what for me is telling about that team is the fact that a couple of years after that, they won the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah.
And then the following season on for that, they nearly won it again. And they also played the great AC Milan side.
Yes.
In the Super Cup. And they didn't batter us. Do you know what I mean? We gave them a really, really, really good game. And they were like winning the European Cup, all the time. And they had some of the world's best players in their side. And we gave them a really, really good game. So for me, that says it all, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, AC Milan back then were just, I can't think of a team that was, that could be as good as that. They were just, they were unbelievable. They were relentless. And Arsenal, as you quite rightly said, took it to them. But we, unfortunately, just couldn't hold out to them. And they, fair play, they were a brilliant team. But the Invincible team was quite incredible. But if you look at the amount of games drawn in that year to the 91 team, that 91 team, the attack we had was phenomenal. And we had a brilliant defence, all apart from the Chelsea game that day, which was a complete cup shot, to be fair, because we were, everybody was so confident, and all of a sudden it was just one of them days, Arsenal just didn't. A lot of people say, we had no defence. Well, if you actually look at it, we did. Adams was out because he was on holiday. Her Majesty's pleasure. But we did have a defence that day. It just didn't gel, and that's it.
I mean, do you think it was because Adams was out, Jez?
No, I don't. Steve Bold was there, wasn't he? I just think it's just that day. Chelsea weren't good. They weren't brilliant, to be fair. It's just we just didn't. Arsenal that day just didn't play Arsenal. Wasn't the team all round that had been playing all season. For some reason that day it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So, thinking about the Arsenal teams that you've seen, Jez, I wanted to ask you about if you could pick some greatest 11s out of those players. So, what I was wondering if you could do is tell me your best 11 from the period before Arsene Wenger got appointed to start with.
Before Arsene Wenger.
Before Arsene Wenger got appointed. So, up till 1996.
That's a good question, mate. Goalkeeper. Oh. I'm going to go. I'm going to go John Lukic. I really rated him. Defence-wise, I'm trying to think back now. David O'Leary. And I can see his face. I can't think of his name. Oh, God. Sammy Nelson. Great defender.
Yeah.
And the old brain's going a bit really. I can see what their faces. I can't think of names. So I've done goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Who else? Sammy Nelson, David O'Leary. Definitely Tony Adams, without a question of a doubt. And on out there, I can see him. I can't think of the ducking name. Anyway, I'll come back to him. Midfield, without a question, Dennis Bergkamp. Absolutely unbelievable player. John Radford out on the wing, right wing, and one that will surprise you is Ian Gould, Ray Gould.
Yeah,
unbelievable player in the back in the late 60s and up to the middle of the 70s. Strikers, for me, Alan Smith, all day long. And I'm going to have to go with another midfield. I'm going to say Rocky Roadcastle.
Yeah.
Great player. And I'm trying to think of that left back. I can see him. I can't think of his solid name.
Pat Rice.
That's it. Well done, Pat Rice. Yeah, I mean, that man is an absolute stalwart of the club. Played for the club, coached the club. I think he was a brilliant coach. What he did at Arsenal. So, yeah, I'd go with that lot.
Because he was like the epitome of Arsenal Football Club, wasn't he?
Oh, all day. Absolutely. And he worked so hard in the winter, they used to have the long sleeves, didn't they?
Yeah.
Always have his wrapped up his arm.
Mm.
And he was a tough player.
Mm.
Really tough player. I mean, I'd like to see some players come up against him today.
See, the thing is, Jezz, I don't know about you, but I don't remember that many games where I went to when he was playing. I don't remember seeing many left wingers because he was a right back, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that many players he was playing against get the better of him.
No, I mean he was a bit of a unit.
Yeah.
And he was a tough player. He was quick at times, and his tackling was so precise that not many players like playing against him. In fact, he was tough.
Mm.
He wouldn't fall over.
No.
And I can remember many times when players would come up against him, they'd literally bounce off him. He was real. Saying, I'm trying to think the right word for him. Really, he was solid.
Mm.
And he had massive thighs. He's a top player for Arsenal. Top player.
He was strong as an ox, Jezz, wasn't he?
Yeah. I would like to come up against him. I should. I can tell you.
Exactly. And I've heard stories that when he was Arsene Wenger's assistant, that if anyone needed a bollocking at half time, it was him that used to do it.
Well, I've heard stories about this, that if Arsenal were playing crap at half time, Arsene Wenger would go in the changing room and not say a word.
Mm.
He'd just stand there and look. And as you just said, Pat Rice would be the one bollocking players, giving out instructions, whatever. Mm. And Wenger would just stand there and stare, give you the evil glare. Apparently there's a story somebody told me that, how true this is, I do not know, that there was one game we were playing and he just went and stood in front of Patrick Vieira and just stared at him because Patrick Vieira was not having a good day.
Mm.
Literally just stared at him for the whole of the half time. And I don't know if that story is true, but that's something I was told.
Yeah, because the thing is, Jezz, as well, was that Wenger was a big fella, wasn't he?
He was a big fella.
He was 6 foot plus, easily.
About 6'4", I think.
Yeah. So, having him standing over you like that must have been quite intimidating, even if he didn't say anything.
I think he had that once. Do you remember when he had his when he first came? He had glasses, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he had contact lenses. Then he had laser treatment to his eyes, didn't he? Mm. And I think the fact that he could just stare you down, and the sort of reputation he had built at Arsenal now, when Arsenal were becoming the invincible team. I don't think you'd want to piss with him, really.
No.
I think you'd be a bit. I don't really want to fight. Say anything back because I think you'd have come off worse.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So what I want to do now, interesting that we've been talking about Arsenal. I want to talk about some of the managers we've had, Jezz, if that's all right.
Yeah.
In your opinion, the first thing I want to ask is, in your opinion, what were the reasons that led the club going into decline after winning the Fairs Cup in 1970 and then the double in 71? Why do you think they went into decline? Because at one point in the 70s, we nearly got relegated, didn't we?
Did, 74.
Yeah.
Well, Bertie Mee was a good manager. I mean, he got Arsenal to the League Cup where we lost to Swindon.
Mm.
The Intercity Fairs Cup. That second leg at home was unbelievable. The double. My opinion from the games I witnessed was as we got into 72, 73, well, 71, 72, 73 onwards, the team were getting older. Arsenal, being typical Arsenal, weren't investing in new players to maintain that status.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, it came to the point where we did nearly get relegated in 74. And that was the last season that year that we beat Liverpool at Anfield till 1989.
Blimey.
So, it's that's 15 odd years.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know Liverpool became a great, great, great team in that period. So, not many teams did beat Liverpool at home. So, Bertie Mee basically, I think, was struggling to maintain the status of the team, and he paid the price and got binned. And then we all know that that was the end of that.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, looking at it when I was a youngster, I couldn't figure out what was going on, why it had happened. Because I mean, obviously, I was very young. I'm too young to remember the 71 team because I was only 4. Do you know what I mean? But I just look back at it and I think, well, why? Why did that happen? Why didn't they just build on the success? But now, thinking about it, to me, it's a recurring theme. That's why we do things. We don't like have a winning side and then building it and whatnot, because that's just not the way we've ever done it, except for in the 30s.
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting thing, and that thing you said to me, but Herbert Chapman changed the way of modern football, or football that we still see in world football today, is the WM formation. And you look at any team structure today, and it's pretty much similar to that. And so Arsenal back then had total different management, didn't they? I mean, they were looking to move on. But it happened in the 40s, happened in the 50s, happened in the 60s, happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, as we go on. There's never a true sort of progression with Arsenal. Oh, right, we've won the league, right, we go and win it again next year, so we'll invest. Man United did it. Liverpool did it in the 70s, 80s. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to be the Arsenal way.
No, it isn't. I don't.
Recently.
No, I don't think it is. I've never ever seen them do it. Do you know what I mean? And it's always baffled me about why they've never ever done it. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest, I still find it odd, but I guess that's just the way they are, the way the people are that run the club or were running the club. So
contentment. I think what it is, Warren, is that Arsenal win a league. Yeah. So let's say, for example, when Arsene Wenger won the double. Yeah. Then they didn't go and push on and say, right, we need to invest in even more better players, because it seems to me that Arsenal like to go in cycles. That they win the league here. The players, some go, they get a couple in, but they're not the level of the players that have gone. And then the players get a bit older, which is what happened in the 70s. The squad was getting aged, and other teams were investing. And Arsenal very nearly got relegated in 74. So it seems to me that Arsenal get to this peak. Oh, yeah, we've won the league and we've won the FA Cup, but they don't continue that run. So does that make sense? It's like, oh, we've done this, now we can rest a bit. Well, no, you can't. You've got to go on and do it again. That's what you're playing football for. But it doesn't seem to be the Arsenal way.
No. So when in 1976, when we appointed Terry Neal, how did you feel about that appointment, Jez?
Well, he's an ex-player. I'll be honest, I didn't think a lot really, because at the time, it wasn't like there is now. You had all these managers hanging around, and in he came, and he started to change things at the club, and we go up. Well, he got us to 3 cup finals. Sadly, we only won one of them, but then he had to go. But we had decent players. We had Frank Stapleton come in, Liam Brady, Alan Sunderland. I said Frank. All those players came in and transformed the team. I mean, when we first got Liam Brady, it was like unbelievable. I thought, who is this guy? Never heard of him. Didn't know who he was. But then again, you didn't have all this football. We've got to remember, wasn't so much televised as it is now. Nowhere near. So you didn't have the knowledge of all these players coming from different teams. Obviously, you knew the big names like George Best and Ian Ure and all these players back in the day. But I can't actually tell you where Liam Brady came, what club he came from.
He came through the youth academy, didn't he?
I don't know.
We did, and we got him. He got scouted in Ireland, and they brought him over as him, Frank Stapleton, and David O'Leary. I think they all came together, and I think. Well, this is what I've thought, was that they all came over together and they were all staying in digs like the way Arsenal used to. They used to bring players from all over the place, and they would be like put with families who would look after them until they got old enough to sort of fend for themselves, sort of thing. But I think Liam Brady came through the youth team.
You're probably right. I can't remember, to be fair, but I remember, when we first saw him, you were like, who the hell is this? This guy's unbelievable.
Yeah, he was super talented, wasn't he, Jez?
I mean, it's a shame when he went, to be fair.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking.
And we lost Stapleton as well to Man United.
Yeah.
So lost 2 great players in one hit. And that made a big difference, big hole in the team. But, Terry Neal, I remember how football has changed, and the fact thousands of people got up to Islington Town Hall to get him out. And out he went. And I think unfairly, if he'd been given more support, he would have done better with Arsenal, because let's be fair. I mean, that year beat Man United 3-2 in the cup final. Arsenal were playing a pretty decent season. But again, they didn't. They hadn't invested previous to that to keep the team going, and it proved it when we lost to West Ham the following year.
Because was that the year that we signed Alan Hudson as well?
Yeah,
and that's right. And you're right, because that for me, I still don't understand how that team never won a title. Because I think when you look at it, the players we had, they were good enough.
Oh, without a doubt. I just don't think you have to. Yeah, I mean, Terry Neal at times, some of his tactics were questionable, to be fair. And he, I remember some games, and I'm not a football tactician. I don't make myself out to be. But even I thought, what are you doing? I remember one game he took off Frank Stapleton, and he'd scored 2 goals, and it was about the 50th minute, and Arsenal were playing brilliantly, and it ended up as a 2-2 draw. And you thought, well, why have you done that? The guy's on fire today. He's nearly on a hat trick, I believe he would have gone on to get a hat trick that day. But
Mm.
no, he just, it was annoying things like that. And I think in the end, that's what the Arsenal fan base got fed up with, that we weren't getting the success that he sort of didn't promise, but what Arsenal had sort of imitated that we were going to get, and it didn't happen. And I think that pissed the fan base off in the end.
Yeah, because to me, I just thought, looking back at it, I thought it was either one of two things or a mixture of two things. And the two things were that they were very inconsistent, and the other thing was because of the way how well Liverpool were playing.
Yeah, well, Liverpool were a different class. Nobody could touch Liverpool back then, apart from Nottingham Forest.
Yeah,
with Brian Clough, So those two teams back then were just levels. Yeah, they are like Man City and Liverpool today.
Yeah.
So, Man United, Chelsea, nobody could compete with them. So it was what it was. Liverpool had them. Bill Shankly. I mean, what a manager he was.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it was
different time.
Yeah, exactly. So moving into the 80s, and Terry Neal has been sacked, and we've appointed Don Howe as a caretaker, and then he became a full-time appointment. How did you feel about Don Howe as manager at Arsenal?
Well, let's be honest, he'd been there for a while, and he was a great coach, Don Howe. So I wasn't unhappy about it. He didn't do anything, though. Let's be fair.
No.
So it was quite evident when he got appointed in a permanent spot that he wasn't going to take Arsenal forward. So he had to go, really.
See, because the thing is, I've heard conflicting reports about what happened, and I beginning to think that he was a stopgap appointment. I don't think they had any intention of keeping him there long term. But I remember, I've seen conflicting reports about it, but I'm convinced, right, on the north, when I was standing on the North Bank, the game after he'd left the club, everyone seemed to think that he'd been sacked. And because I remember that the North Bank really went for the director's box. I mean, we didn't physically attack them, but I remember all the singing and the chanting in support of Don Howe after he'd left. Like there were chants of Donny loves the Arsenal, Donny loves the Arsenal, you don't. And it was getting really loud and really venomous. And that's why I have this idea in my head that he got sacked. I mean, what was your perception of it, Jezz?
Well, you've got to remember that Don Howe is very highly respected at Arsenal for his service to the club. And it was a bit of a surprise at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When he went. But it was a surprise when it happened. But it was almost you could see it was going to happen. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. He was never ever going to be put there as a long-term replacement. It was to fill a gap, a bit like Bruce Rioch, really. I always felt sorry for him, to be fair. But, yeah, I mean, when he went, it was like, well, I thought he'd have lasted longer, to be fair.
Because I mean, when you look back at it, it seems to be something that Arsenal do a lot. Like, we'll get rid of a manager, then they'll get someone in, and they have a short period of time until they got the one they really want. And for me, it's happened. It happened to Don Howe, it happened to Bruce Rioch, and it happened to Unai Emery.
Yep.
Now, it's happened 3 times since I've been watching the club. which is since about 1972. So, don't know. I just think it's a recurring theme. I don't really.
Totally agree.
Hey?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want Unai Emery to go. I think it was a disgrace what they did to him. When you consider what he was trying to do at Arsenal with the players he had and what Arteta has done, I mean, let's not forget Arteta's broken a lot of records at Arsenal and the wrong records. So, and yet everybody thinks he's the best young coach in the world. Well, sorry, I don't see it.
No, I don't. I don't.
It has been the Arsenal way, Don Howe, Bruce Rioch, Unai Emery. And I'm sorry, I don't think you can compare Unai Emery with Arteta.
No. I think levels above Arteta, to be quite honest. And, I just find it shocking the way that they treated Unai Emery. And when you look at what he achieved when he was at PSG and what he's doing now with Villarreal, where he got into a semi-final of the Champions League, and I'm just thinking, what the hell was going through your heads when you decided to sack him?
Because they wanted Arteta.
Yeah.
I think they wanted Arteta because Arteta will play the Arsenal tune. And the Kroenkes are happy with that. So, Edu, football, what he's supposed to do. I mean, he came from the Brazilian FA. So he didn't have to go and negotiate for players. He was just part of the structure that picked the bloody players for Brazil. So where are his qualifications in football management of negotiating for players? Chelsea didn't do that when they had that, what was her name, Maria, whatever her name was. Did all their negotiations. But no, I think they had an objective. Emery came in. I think he was unfortunate with the Europa League. The Arsenal team just didn't turn up. Embarrassment. And he was never going to be the man. They went in for him. They got him. They wanted Arteta. I think they waited another year for Arteta. Whether that was on Guardiola's recommendation about Arteta, well, if that was, then Guardiola was taking the piss. So, it's the Arsenal way, mate. We want to buy a player, but we won't pay you what you think he's worth. We'll offer you 30 grand less. Well, you're never going to get the player doing that.
I just don't understand why they do that. It just don't make any sense to me. No. I just find it ridiculous.
And we look at a player at the start of the summer window, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. You don't see Liverpool, Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea do that. They want to play that. They go on and they do the business, and they get the player. No, we take weeks and weeks and weeks. There's this continual piss-arsing about with negotiations. If you want the player, pay the money.
Exactly. When you're trying to buy a house, you don't go in and say, right, you want 120 grand for that house. Well, we'll give you 60.
Yeah.
There is a bit of negotiation. Yeah, there is. But you don't go in there with a ridiculous offer like that, do you? You just don't. It's crazy.
Well, what doing to the classic one with Suarez?
Yeah.
What was it? We've offered something and £1.
Yeah, that was crazy. Apparently was because they thought there was a release clause.
Yeah. 70,000 and £1 or something like that. I might be wrong. Something like that.
That was embarrassing.
That is a piss take.
Yeah.
I think Suarez would have been saying, you want to take the piss out of me? I ain't coming to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But we did it for Ben White, didn't we?
Well, no, exactly.
52 million there. Didn't negotiate there on that. Oh, yeah, no, we want him. Yeah, 52 million.
Exactly. Now, moving forward then, Jez, we had all the run up to when George Graham was going to be appointed, and I don't know if you remember this, but I seem to remember that there was a lot of talk about all the different managers that were going to come to the club, and ones that have been approached and ones who were going to be approached. I mean, I seem to remember there was talk about Terry Venables, Bobby Robson, Johan Cruyff. Then there was recently, I heard a story, and I'd never heard it before, that they were in negotiations with Alex Ferguson.
That's the one.
George Graham is his assistant or something.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I think that was the most serious one that I remember. But you know, George Graham came from Millwall, didn't he?
That's right.
Manager at Millwall, and I think Arsenal went for him because of what he'd achieved at Millwall. He got them promoted and got them back to playing some pretty decent football. But the one that I do remember hearing the most about was Alex Ferguson. And obviously it never happened. But George Graham, iconic manager in my book.
Yeah, exactly. So when this was all going on, Jez, who did you want Arsenal to appoint as manager?
Say again, sorry.
So when there was all this speculation going on in the press and amongst the supporters about who was coming in, who did you want to be manager at that time?
I actually did want. I didn't want George Graham because I didn't think it worked having an ex-Arsenal player like Terry Neal and all that, and I didn't want to see him coming in. I didn't really, to be fair, take a lot of great interest in it. And the reason I say that is because I've got no influence over it. So it's the fact of it will be a decent manager. Well, that's proven me wrong with Arteta, isn't it? But so I wasn't that really taking a lot of interest, to be quite fair with you.
I mean, to be honest with you, Jez, I was similar because I trusted the club to make the right appointment. Because back then, I did trust the club to do things the proper way and do things the right way because 90% of the time they did.
Well, you had David Dean, Sir Peter Hillwood.
Yeah.
And I had ultimate faith in those two people, and they proved it. So
exactly. So, you know, when things needed to be done, invariably they would be done properly. And we had a reputation of doing things the right way. And because I remember back in the day that we tried to sign Kerry Dixon for a couple of £1 million from Chelsea. And Ken Bates apparently was messing around with the deal and it all fell through. And I remember someone on Grandstand or something, or that program that used to be on BBC on a Saturday lunchtime interviewing Ken Bates about after the deal collapsed and saying to him, oh, well, you know, why did the deal collapse? And Ken Bates was trying to put the blame on Arsenal, and this person was saying to him, well, that's not what Arsenal said. And Arsenal always do things properly. So what are you talking about? But that, for me, that just summed up what the reputation that we had.
Well, it was the fact that, you know, like when Bertie Mee came in as manager, he instructed that any new signings had to answer a 20-question quiz about Arsenal. So he wanted them to understand the Arsenal philosophy, know about the club, get the understanding of the club, and that was followed through over the years. And the fact back then we had a proper chairman and a board of directors. I mean, what do you ever hear about the board of directors nowadays? Nothing. Nothing at all. Why are they even there? What do they do?
No, well, this is it, isn't it? You never hear anything about it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I never hear anything from them. back in time, you'd hear statements in the press from David Dean or Sir Peter Hillwood. David Dean would always come out and be the one to announce a new signing. And all we've got now is Edu and Vinay. And in a few weeks' time, Edu will be out in the Caribbean again on his jet ski doing sweet FA. So,
exactly. So, if this bung scandal hadn't have happened, Jez, with George Graham, yeah, how long do you reckon he would have stayed at Arsenal for? Do you think?
I think if that hadn't happened, I reckon he'd been there for another 2 or 3 seasons at least. I mean, that's, be it fair, he was doing well, but I don't know the details of what exactly happened there. Wasn't it to do with a transfer or something?
Yeah, I heard that he was paying money to agents so that we could sign players or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
But it was a shame. But I think he'd been there for another 2 or 3 years. The way he was going, he was going in the right direction. That's for sure.
Because I think when it happened, I think he was starting the process to rebuild the side again, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he'd have been able to build another side. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that also the fact when he came in and achieved what he did achieve, the fan base loved him. I mean, he's ex-player, ex-iconic player at Arsenal, one of the first double winners. So you've got to respect that fact. And I thought he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The way he dealt with the team. You've all seen probably the video of the 89 season, when he's at the training ground talking to the players. And he said, don't worry about the fans, I'll get them on side and and all that. And you could see this guy had a direction, which in the early days, when Arsene Wenger came in, so did he.
Exactly. So, in a nutshell, Jez, how did you feel about George Graham's tenure at Arsenal?
I thought he was amazing. I thought he did great. And it was a shame to go under a dark cloud like that, to be fair, for what he'd done for the club. But Arsenal back then had standards. And out he went.
Because do you think if it had happened now, that it would have had the same outcome, or do you reckon they would have tried to sweep it under the carpet?
I don't think it'd be the same now. I reckon if you found Arteta doing that, right, because he's the person he is, and the setup of Arsenal now, I think it'd all be just, oh well, don't worry about that. Yeah, just sweep that under the carpet.
Yeah, because that's what I think as well. I just think that if that was to happen now, that it would just get, hushed up and we wouldn't hear about it. And
they wouldn't, unless the FA got involved. And don't forget, the FA were involved in that with George Graham. So I think the club had to be seen to be doing something. And so out he went.
Yeah, because it was all over the papers as well, wasn't it? So, okay, so George Graham's gone, and we've now brought in Bruce Rioch.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Bruce Rioch coming to Arsenal, Jez?
I was quite happy, actually. He had a proven track record. I thought, I can see this working. Little did we know, behind the scenes, they were already trying to get Arsene Wenger from Grampus 8. And I remember hearing something about, it was at a game one day about, somebody came out of this statement about Arsene Wenger. I said, well, who's he then? Never heard of him. I said, I didn't even know he was coming as a manager. I thought he was coming as a footballer. I said, who's he played for then? No, he's the manager of Grampus 8. I said, who are they? Oh, the Japanese league. Oh, right, okay. And I thought, no. Bruce Rioch's the man. You know, he brought in Dennis Bergkamp. So I thought that, he brought him in. This bloke can do no wrong. And then, obviously, out he goes and he comes to Arsene Wenger. Shows what I know.
Well, it was. I just find that it was a bit strange way it all happened because, again, it seems to me that it was another unannounced temporary appointment.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because, like you said, in the background, they were trying to get Arsene to come in, and because I think they wanted him to come in after George, but they couldn't get him to come.
I think he wanted a contract in Japan, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why they brought in Bruce Rioch, and poor guy, I feel sorry for him, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't told this is only a temporary thing, and he wasn't here long, was he?
No, it's only a year.
Yeah.
A bit like Unai, really.
Yeah, and out he goes, in comes Arsene. And I remember being, when he got appointed and being at games and thinking, well, who's this bloke? What's he, I don't know about him. I remember talking to, it was in the pub, and one of my classic statements says I know nothing. I said, he won't do no good. And my mate turned around to me and said, you said that about Ian Wright when we signed him from Crystal Palace. He said, he'll be rubbish. And I said, yeah, I did, didn't I? And he went, yeah, he proved you wrong. I said, so, yeah.
Yeah. No, but it was a strange one because no one had heard of him. No one knew anything about him. I remember that he'd managed Glenn Hoddle. I remember reading that he'd managed Glenn Hoddle and he'd managed Gary Lineker, and they've both spoken quite highly of him.
Yeah, I think, I mean, David Dean was the man who wanted him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And David Dean was a very well-respected person in world football. And I think, who was the French team that Wenger managed? Was it Marseille or something like that?
No, it was Monaco.
Yeah, Monaco. And I think that's where it all started from. That David Dean had a place in Monaco. He used to go out there for the Formula One. He was a big Formula One fan, David Dean. And I reckon if that's where it all started from, he got chatting. And Monaco put him on to this Arsene Wenger, and they got into negotiations. And I'm sure if I remember rightly, he couldn't come when they wanted him because it was something to do with the contract at Grand Prix in Japan. So they had to wait for a year or whatever it was. So, yeah.
It's just a bit similar to the Arteta thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very similar.
Yeah.
But the wrong way round.
Yeah, exactly. Because it, like I said earlier, it plays out throughout our history. This is now the third time that I know of, that I remember of since following Arsenal, it's happened. And I wouldn't be surprised they don't do it again in the future at some point.
I'd rather they did than keep Arteta, that's for sure.
Eh?
I'd rather they did than keep Arteta.
Yeah, me too, mate. I just can't believe, I'm baffled by the rationale for it. I really am. I just don't get it, mate. Really, I don't. So then, finally, when Arsene was sacked, because I think he was sacked. I don't think it was something he decided to do. I think he was sacked, if the truth be known, mate. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, he went, and then we got Unai Emery. And what did you think about him being appointed?
Yeah, I thought excellent. I was not a Wenger hater, because what that bloke did for Arsenal Football Club was not a lot different to what Herbert Chapman did. So I'll give him utmost respect there. And, we had the Invincibles, and that team and seasons running up to that played unbelievable football. People still talk about it today, non-Arsenal fans. They were terrified of playing Arsenal because of the sexy football they played, and some of the stuff they played was just phenomenal. So, but he did stay too long. I think he saw Arsenal as being his Arsenal, had too much control, in my belief, and it was Arsene Wenger and that wanted the Emirates, as they sold it to us, to compete with the world's best. Well, we certainly achieved that, didn't we? And so he had to go. I personally think, I don't think he was sat Warren. I think he was asked to leave. The reason I say that is because the amount of empty seats there were at games. People had enough. Top four. The year we ended up runners up to Leicester. And let's be fair, Arsenal were the only team to beat Leicester home and away twice, that year.
That's
but
right.
Man City, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool all played rubbish that year. And that let Leicester in. But respect to Leicester, they were playing some good football and deserved to win. So fair play. But if Wenger had won that year, I think it would be a totally, totally different thing.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think it would have given him a new lease of life, and I think it could have reinvigorated him, because I think near the end, Jez, he was tired.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that some games he just looked like he'd lost his way. And I think he had. So I personally think he was asked to leave. And because of the lack of bums on seats, so it was financially obviously hitting the club, and that's the only way you get rid of people with Arsenal in my eyes now, is that you've got to hit them financially. So
especially this current crew that we got in control.
Exactly, and that's the only time the Cronkies will turn around and say, "Hang about, something's not right here," when they look at the balance sheets, But that won't happen, because for some reason we've got a fractured fan base, some out, some in. And people, apparently they're dropping the new home shirt at home to the Everton game. Shocking. How many kits have we had this season? 4?
It's just ridiculous. We've had obviously the regular 3. Then we had that white kit against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be this one against the new kit launched together against Everton. So it's going to be 5.
Yeah. I remember, when the old bruised banana shirt came out in 91, that was our away kit for 3 seasons. And he'd get a new home kit every couple of years. And yet now, 5 different kits in a season. That's just ridiculous, especially the cost.
I know, and we've got a cost of living crisis in this country.
Yeah.
And what are they doing to help the supporters?
Nothing.
No, exactly. And that really upsets me, because back in the day, when I first started going, I'm sure that Arsenal, faced with this situation, would have done something.
Well, I don't think they'd have popped the season tickets up 4%.
Sorry, mate?
I don't think they'd have popped the season tickets up 4%.
No, I don't think they would have either, mate. Because I remember when I had my season ticket at Highbury, Jez, I think it was £75 for the season.
Yeah.
And when I first started going, like I said to you the other day, I think it was £1.20 to get in the North Bank and £3.50 for the West Stand lower tier.
Yeah, it's about right.
For a seat. But, I know things have changed and whatnot, but I just think they're taking liberties from the supporters by the way they're behaving. I really do. So talking about people taking liberties, how did you feel about the way that Unai Emery was dealt with at the end?
Just disrespectful, shocking, to be fair. I think he should have been given the rest of the season. People forget very quickly when he first came in, the unbeaten run Arsenal went on. Was getting tunes out of certain players that Arteta couldn't. And so just shows he's a totally different level as a manager. And people are all too quickly to forget. And I think the problem we have is this business of Arteta is because Wenger signed him, and he signed him as a panic buy, right up, the death on transfer deadline day from Everton, and he came in as a player, Arteta. He wasn't particularly great. I mean, I didn't want him. I was like, why the hell are we buying him?
Yeah,
but we needed to strengthen the midfield. It was quite clear that our midfield was weak. We'd lost some very good midfielders. So Wenger was panicking. Brought him in. He was bang average as a player, and he's a bang average manager. So there you go. I think a lot of that is the love fest, because a lot of these people only remember a lot of these the Wenger years, the Invincibles. Oh, whippy-doo, because Arsene Wenger went invincible. Well, okay, it was brilliant. I'm not going to disrespect that. But he signed Arteta, and I think that is a lot of the root cause of why people love Arteta.
So, I think you're 100% correct, Jez. I really do, because I can't see why else it is, because, he's not an Arsenal legend.
No.
He certainly wasn't a great player for the club. He wasn't. It's not like he's one of the greatest players that have ever graced the game in English football. So I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't understand, other than the fact that these days it seems to me that appearance and the way you look is very important amongst a large section of our supporters and young people in general. But from what Del Boy was saying to me the other day, he said that a large section of the supporter that are backing him are older people as well. So I don't get it, Jez. I really don't. Because, Gracie's not like that. Bless her. If you're watching Gracie, big up to you. She's not like that. And, that Josh character, he's not like that either. So I just do not understand why it is that he gets the backing and the love of all these supporters, because what has he done to justify it?
Nothing. If he had been a proven manager at another Championship or Premier League club, and he'd actually done something, then you can say, okay, fair play. You've been out there, you've done it. And I hear all this call. Oh, well, he was a coach with Pep Guardiola. You're not telling me that it wasn't Pep Guardiola that was managing that Man City team? Because I won't have it. It wasn't Arteta.
No.
Arteta was there in some description as a coach. But Pep Guardiola was the main man.
Yeah, 100%.
And to be fair, he hasn't really missed Arteta since he's gone, has he?
No.
So I don't understand that argument whatsoever. And I still, if Arteta proves me wrong, then I'll be the first to say, well done, Mr. Arteta. You've proved me wrong. But I've been around this club for a long, long time. I've been there, seen it, and done it. and it's the Arsenal way. And as Craig quite rightly put there, Arteta was the cheaper option for the Cronkies.
Mm.
And I totally believe you're correct in saying that. So, but I hope he proves me wrong, because I want to see Arsenal win the league. I'd love to see Arsenal do well in Europe. But we've never been a great European team. Let's get it right. So I've got no great ambitions there. But it is what it is.
So when he was appointed, Jezz, who did you want coming in? I mean, obviously Unai's gone, and then this Arteta character rolls in. No experience, no previous managerial track record. He's just been like an assistant to Pep Guardiola and done a bit of coaching. So, I mean, for me, I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, so he sat next to Pep Guardiola, but I could go and sit next to a brain surgeon for a year. Yeah. It doesn't mean to say that I'm going to be a good brain surgeon.
Nope.
Right?
Point.
So that was my perspective of it. I didn't want him from the get-go because I thought, well, he ain't got any experience. How's he going to, manage this football team without having that experience? And in his first full season, we nearly paid the ultimate price.
Mm.
We weren't that far off the relegation zone, and let's have it right. For a long period of that season, we weren't. I mean, I know we finished 8th, but there was a big period leading up, for a while there. And there was that game against Burnley at home. I think we went down to 15th after that.
Yeah, did, yeah.
And, it was looking a bit dicey at one point. And one of my best mates, Mick, who's a massive Norwich fan, he couldn't believe it. He was saying to me, look, he was going to Arsenal and he got relegated. Arsenal Football Club.
Mm.
What's going on? And so when they appointed Arteta, did you have some candidates in your head, or you were thinking to yourself, this is who I want to come in?
Yeah, I wanted either Mourinho or Allegri. Mourinho, proven track record. Allegri, proven track record. And that's who I wanted. I mean, it was shock and horror when I saw it on, I think, Sky Sports, that they were outside Arteta's house. Whoever did the negotiations. And I thought, no way. No way. And then, bugger me, he signed. And I'm like, you've got to be having a laugh to appoint him as manager to manage the third biggest team in English football at the time. And we brought him in. But, with the Cronkies, it at the end of the day, I thought, well, doesn't surprise me. I doubt the Cronkies even know what the results are of the game at the time.
I've got really strong doubts about them, Jez. I really have. I don't think they're serious about it.
I think it's a toy. It's like a toy to them. And they're making money out of it. Now, I know they don't come in and take millions out of the club and this, that and the other and stuff like that, like the Glazers have done at Man United. But, I don't agree with those sort of people owning an English football club. They don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't understand the passion. He made the statement, didn't he? That idiot, Josh. He didn't understand the fans, the passion of the fans. Then you need to do one. Get out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let somebody invest. Let somebody invest that cares about the football club. Because it ain't going to be happy times for Arsenal in the next few years, that's for sure.
No, I don't think so. And to be honest, Jez, I don't think they're that interested in Arsenal being successful. and I'm starting to believe that was the reason they appointed Arteta.
He's an easy catch, isn't he? He's a yes man.
Yeah.
He'll go along with what they say.
Mm.
And they've thanked him by giving him another 3-year contract. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
It is absolutely disgraceful. So, last question I've got for you, Jez. You'll be glad to know. What do you think needs to be done to improve the club's fortunes, protect its long-term future, and reconnect it with the culture, ethos, and principles of its past that made it great and made it one of the most respected clubs in world football?
I think we need to have proper owners that will actually have a care about the history of Arsenal in the way that Arsenal used to be called classy Arsenal. And that's how Arsenal were looked at years ago. It was classy Arsenal. And I having done research for my channel, I actually didn't know this well. It always used to be, back in early days, you don't hear it so much now, we're playing the Arsenal. And I remember thinking, I wonder why. I didn't actually know that at one point Arsenal, not for very long, were called the Arsenal. They registered their name as, just after Woolwich Arsenal, the Arsenal. And I remember going to away games when I was allowed to go with my granddad, and you'd hear people say, "Oh, we're playing the Arsenal," because that's how they were remembered from back then. And we need to get back to being respected, because Arsenal, nobody's frightened of Arsenal now. You know, it's not like when we were in Arsene Wenger's early days, when teams were frightened of players. So we need proper people running the club. And I mean, getting rid of Edu, Vinay, Garlic Head, all that lot. The Cronkies need to sell the club to somebody who actually wants to own the club and wants to develop the club, is happy to invest in the club.
Hi.
So that needs to happen. And I don't think any of the philosophy or any of it will happen anytime soon, Warren. Until
I don't, and it saddens me, to be honest, Jez. It really does. This thing about the Arsenal, I remember seeing a documentary about the club, and there was this clip of one of the cup finals in the 30s at Wembley, and there was this group of huge, massive fans stood on a terrace singing "Abide With Me," and then all you saw above it were the TV company had put on was the Arsenal. And still now, when I think about it, it makes me feel really emotional. I don't know why, but it does. But it was just all these people like standing on that terrace singing "Abide With Me" at the cup final. Because I don't know about you, Jez, but the cup final is really important to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to if you do your cup final day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it, Jez. And I'd absolutely love it if you could come on and talk about your memories of cup final day as well.
Yeah, love to.
Yeah, thanks, mate. But yeah, and you know, it just saddens me when I see how disrespected the club's history has been and its culture has been, and the way that it's going now, because I just think we're a pale shadow of the club we once were.
Oh, we are. We are not the club that I grew up with and loved, and you know, and everything. It's very sad times now that Arsenal have gone down this road and are a mediocre team, and we are the driving force in English football that we once were and have been for many years. You know, I mean. I'd love to be able to witness the times in the 30s, what that must have been like, from the stories I've been told by my granddad and that. That must have been phenomenal times.
Yeah.
To go 3 years, like that. I've never seen it.
No, I haven't. And
none of us seen it.
It must have been incredible because every year we were winning like either a league title or an FA Cup or and then there was that time when Arsenal had 7 players in the England team that played the world champions and beat them at Highbury. And the only reason they didn't have more was because the other players were either Scottish or Welsh or something like that.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So it just, it's just quite sad, really. But anyway, Jezz, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with me today, mate. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure. Loved it. And I'll be out to see you a bit later.
Yeah, we'll be back on again later talking about 96-97 season.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, mate. Right, so is there anything else you want to say, Jezz?
Arteta out.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, mate. I'm just going to play the exit.
Okay, man.